Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Gardener. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's September 4th. I had to chuckle the other day as I was putting together my fall containers. The first thing I do when I transition from one season to another is determine which plants are salvageable, the ones that have enough gas to go to another season. One of my pots ended up being a bit of a hodgepodge. I call it my must-go container in honor of my husband's great aunt Lena. Here's the backstory. Great Aunt Lena used to babysit my husband and his siblings when they were little. She was helping out my in-laws while they were both at work, and she was famous for making a casserole at the end of the week that she called must-go hot dish. Phil's dad used to tell how one particular must-go hot dish was extra memorable because when he was dishing himself up a plate, he pulled out an intact piece of pizza out of the depths of this hot dish, which no doubt was combined with a can of cream of mushroom soup. In any case, my must-go container ended up being a bit of an homage to Great Aunt Lena. Individually, the plants looked fine, but put together, the effect was jumbled. A must-go container, if ever there was one. I'll have to redo it this weekend. Here's today's brevities. Today is the birthday of the English gardener, designer, and nurseryman Henry Wise, who was born on this day in 1653. One can't mention Henry Wise without talking about George London. The two worked together on gardens throughout England. The partnership began when Wise was a student of London's. When Wise came of age, he became London's partner at the Brompton Park Nurseries. Wise was one of the greatest gardeners and plantsmen of his time. Together, he and London became the designers to work for over 2 decades until London died in 1714. Wise is remembered for being the gardener for Queen Anne, although he also managed the royal gardens during the reigns of William III and George I as well. London and Wise designed formal Baroque gardens. Think box hedges, gravel walkways, beautiful statuary, and magnificent fountains. Wise laid out the stunning avenue of chestnut trees in England's Bushy Park, as well as the walled kitchen garden made for the Duke of Marlborough, which thrills visitors still today. And today is the birthday of the Arnold Arboretum taxonomist and dendrologist Alfred Raeder, who was born on this day in 1863. A dendrologist studies trees, and Raeder was the top dendrologist of his generation. Raeder learned about horticulture from his father, who was an amateur gardener. He worked at a number of botanical gardens around Germany. At the turn of the 20th century, Raeder was sent to the United States to study American grapes, which were resistant to phylloxera, the disease that was caused by aphids and that was threatening to obliterate wine production in Europe. There was no better place for Raeder to conduct his research than Harvard's Arnold Arboretum. It was a fortuitous assignment for Raeder, who ended up meeting the director of the Arboretum, Charles Sprague Sargent. Sargent recognized Raeder's intelligence and diligence. He persuaded him to stay on and gave him the tremendous assignment of compiling a bibliography of everything written about woody plants, published before 1900. It resulted in a 5-volume, 3,789-page work. Rader accomplished much during his time at Harvard. He launched a quarterly botanical publication known as the Journal of the Arnold Arboretum. And Rader came up with a system to identify geographic zones based on the relationship between temperature and the hardiness of specific plants. Rader's work helped establish what we know as the USDA hardiness zone maps. And today is the birthday of Canada's first professional woman plant breeder, a woman called the Dean of Hybridists and the Grand Lady of Canadian Horticulture, Isabella Preston, who was born on this day in 1881. Vita Sackville West once acknowledged, "I must confess, I don't know anything about Miss Isabella Preston of Ottawa." Preston's name had become famous as a result of her lily hybrids. She bred the renowned George C. Creelman hybrid lily in 1919. Vita would have loved Preston's practical and hard-won advice. When a colleague asked Preston what she should do with her rock garden, Preston's advice was rather fascinating. Use every bit of rock. Don't be afraid of it. Plant between, atop, or alongside. Presently, you'll be convinced that flowers need near them the harsh stability of stone. Preston was a self-taught plant hybridizer. In 1920, she joined the Central Experimental Farm in Ottawa. For almost 3 decades, she endeavored to create more blooms on more disease-resistant plants, and she created over 200 cultivars of 6 different plants, including lilacs, lilies, crabapples, columbine, Siberian iris, and roses. Preston lilacs are named in her honor. In Unearthed Words, here's some prose from Willa Cather. She had only to stand in the orchard, to put her hand on a little crab tree and look up at the apples, to make you feel the goodness of planting and tending and harvesting at last. And here's September Song from Geoffrey Hill. September fattens on the vines, roses flake from the wall. The smoke of harmless fires drifts to my eyes. This is plenty. This is more than enough. Today's book recommendation is The Gardener's Guide to Compact Plants by Jessica Walliser. With space becoming a premium for urban gardeners and for gardeners who want to keep their gardens more manageable, compact plants are the perfect solution. One of my favorite things about this book are the amazing options for edible plants that work in small spaces. Incorporating edibles into little spaces in your garden allows you to maximize your garden's productivity and your return on investment. In addition to edibles, Jessica offers suggestions for compact flowering and fruiting trees, as well as compact shrubs, evergreens, and perennials. Plus, Jessica shares what she calls the Magic 7 maintenance tasks, little tips for creating a successful garden, one task at a time. And here's today's garden chore. Now is the time to get your order together for spring bulbs. Whether you use them for planting or forcing during the winter, you will get the best selection if you order early. And once you get them, make sure you don't plant them until the weather turns colder later in the fall. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. On this day in 1938, Charles Joseph Sariel wrote in his journal. He wrote about a common occurrence in gardens, plants growing together. He wrote, "I set out plantations of thyme, rosemary, tarragon, mint, caraway in the wildflower garden, which now becomes an herb garden as well. This is my answer to keeping the weeds down. My studies converge, so why not the plants?" Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up, and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.